I'm Giulia, I come from Palermo and I'm one of the founders of Sperone 167. We are a very in-between project, I would say, because we are not a festival, we are not many things. We know more of the things we are not than the ones we are. But basically, we were born from an exchange between two cities, the city of Palermo and the city of Lecce. We started our activity from two marginal areas of the city to 167th, so to parts of the city that were built during the 70s to respond to social housing issues. So when I say social housing, I was thinking all through this time, we all think different things. Last neighborhood I worked in, social housing, there were no windows, people had occupied the houses, and they were living, it's really living on the edge. So we thought that in spite of the beauty of art and the final output being a wall, the real interesting thing to us was the time and space around that wall, because it gave us the possibility to engage with communities which were not heard, if not during political campaigns. So they received aggressive attention from the municipality, especially in Palermo, during political campaigns, so everyone going there showcasing, red carpeting, and then they were forgotten. So we started doing murals, of course, and very good rosters, very good level, but especially engaging thanks to the sensitivity and to the really capability of the artists we've been working with to engage the community in dialogues, talks, laboratories, round circles, debate in the middle of the street. So to really be able to change the narrative of those places, not only in terms of what is being written. If you Googled Sperone up to 5 years ago, it was just drug smuggling and arrests. Now it's urban art, street art, open air, museum, and all of that you will find, but really worked on changing the narrative the people living there had on themselves, feeling heard, feeling seen, feeling they were people that even if they were not educated or had real thoughts on things, on what beauty is, on what art is, could really be the listeners of such a dialogue. So that answers your question.
No. Is it giving them a voice? Is it that what you're saying? Or?
It's both getting them a voice and engaging this horizontal dialogue when we are not educators, we're not sociologists, we're not urban planners, we are artists, cultural agitators, I always define ourselves. We are really spurring municipality to take care of those places that are abandoned and those people who are abandoned, and we just use murals, very beautiful murals with top international artists as a magnifying lens on those areas. We try and really let people have their say, especially towards themselves, because very often these people, people who live in those areas do not feel like they are worth being given a voice. They have nothing to say on things. On the other hand, and they are really distrustful towards politics and the state. And they're right. Because, maybe I will go into this in a while, but the place I worked in had 3 kindergartens that were abandoned, and all of the 3 were turned into crack houses. And we were working on denouncing that.
Yeah.
So.
There's work to do there.
It's a slow process.
Yeah.
We don't believe everything happens overnight, but to engage at that level means you need to be very patient, and you have to listen and just stay there a lot. And muralism helps because you really need to spend a lot of time in the street.
Yeah, cool. Katarina, welcome.
Cool. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's very nice to be here. So my name is Katarina Moreira. I will say the full one, that it's the last name. It's Přikrylová, so there is no confusion where I come from. I come from Prague, Czech Republic. I work for an NGO where I coordinate and run European projects. It's projects that are international cooperation partnerships, and we work with street art as a tool for education, and especially as a tool for social inclusion. So today I'm here to speak about the project that's called START 2.0, the Street Art for the Future 2.0. Why? Because it's a continuation of a project that we have done already before. And as I said, it's international project, so we have partners from different countries. So everything we do, all the activities, we do them at the same time in Czech Republic, but also in the partner countries. So we also have this connection to connect the people that work with us across Europe so they can learn from each other. And our project is about how street art can be a tool for social inclusion. We understood from the first experience that it's really a strong tool that can be used. And we thought it would be a pity not to continue with this idea, and especially to spread it across our target groups. So we have created a toolkit for youth workers on how they can use the street art as a tool for social inclusion. And the project is currently running. It's running in Czech Republic, in Portugal, Italy, and in Netherlands. And we have already quite very positive reactions from the municipalities, but also from, and especially from the youth workers that work with with kids from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Oh, interesting. That's a lot, though. Mateo, what's your role in this one?
Lovely to meet you all, and thanks for inviting me here. I think I come from slightly a different background than both Katarina and Giulia. I think I am part of Global Street Art, which is a company that has different offices across Europe, and we have different pillars, both on the social side and both on the commercial side. And I think I'm grateful to be invited here because I think it's a topic that needs to be talked about, and being able to be in front of a public and have a mic in my hand to be able to discuss some of those topics I think are very important. And as I said, I think we do a lot of stuff related to the world of painting in general, both more on the commercial side, more on what will be traditional painting, and a lot on the social side with programs like Art for States that we do, and London Mural Festival, and other stuff where we involve a lot more of the community. And I think it's, as I said to Barton yesterday, who invited me, I think it's very important to talk these topics, to be able to hear different points of view and be able to explain. I relate very much to what Katarina said. Street art is a tool. And as a tool, let's use a very graphic example. Let's change street art for a hammer. A hammer can help you to build a house and do something beautiful, but it can also destroy. And I think that's the whole point of this panel in particular, and how street art can exactly be that. It can be a tool for very important social impact, but can be also artwashing and can destroy it to some level.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right into it. Why is street art such a great tool for social impact, or social change maybe even, or change in general? Let's call it that.
Well, maybe I will just see it from the point of view of our project. Like, for us, the street art, it's a very good tool for engagement of our target groups. So youth from disadvantaged backgrounds, street art, it's something cool from them. It's something that they connected to, and they feel it like something that can be the way of expression for themselves. And to show the community that probably they are not as bad that everybody sees them. So this is our experience.
Yeah. How do you look at it, Mateo?
To add to that as well, I'd say street art help democratize the access to art, which I think is very important, especially in major cities all around Europe. The case, for example, I'm from Madrid. I've lived in Madrid my whole life. There are 3, maximum 4 main neighborhoods that have museum, have exhibition. Many of the other doesn't have those aspects. The beautiful thing about street art is once it's in the street, once it's in the public space, what we've been discussed, I think, yes, the ownership can be a little bit more of a gray area, but the aspect of is there for everyone. You don't need to pay to see a wall on the street. You don't need to go a certain hours or not some hours. and you get to have your own opinion and your own emotion through that. And I think that's a great tool for all parts of society, and that's also the impact that it has been on the public space, that it involves everyone and doesn't choose who goes, who doesn't, and that's the point of democratizing as well.
Yeah. How do you look at it, Giulia?
Well, in two different notes, it is an important tool for placemaking, so people see their neighborhood as something different than it was initially perceived. So they really manage to recognize themselves and identify themselves with that sense of beauty and connection. And the other very nice thing is artists themselves. I think people who work in the street have a different stance instead of people who work in our study, no matter what their previous, like the path to street art was. We've worked with artists who were graduated at the School of Arts, and former graffiti writers and graphic designers who turned to street art. So each one of them has a different message, has a different way of interacting with people. And very often they come from very distant places people in the neighborhood did not even know about. So that's another thing. And themes. We do not set themes when we invite artists in none of our, let's say, occasions for work. So being able to interact with very broad, when you have such urgent needs in your life, being able to interact and dream or reflect upon things such as war, gender gap, the freedom of being yourself, and many other super broad themes that you do not actually think about every day when you live in a certain situation. But then, by looking at it every day, you start your own thoughts and you feel more connected to the rest of the world, I believe.
No. Interesting. How do you look at the commercial world in this particular thing? Because often, of course, commercial world is seen as the opposite of it. How do you manage to control that in street art? How do you manage the social impact, actually?
Absolutely. I think is what I said at the beginning, is using that tool and using it correctly. I think the key questions is when you work on projects that are meant to have a social impact, and for that is about what you're doing, who are you doing it with, who's going to benefit from that, what's the level of participation, are you bringing people from the neighborhood, are you doing workshops, are artists being able to understand the area where they are basically putting their artwork, is all about those questions and getting it right. Of course, there are moments and there are projects that doesn't have the same level. It's about making sure that people like different groups like we're here, we're able to create, we're able to help those commercial brands that have budgets, have great budgets to be able to do projects that otherwise wouldn't be able to do, that also understand that in order to do it right, you need to have creators that understand the space, that give artists the chance, the ability to express themselves freely and in connection with those. And then really understand what's the goal behind those projects and who's going to be really using or enjoying that space or benefiting or simply connecting with it. Mm-hmm. I think that's the key. Is I understand seeing the commercial side as a little bit of that devil, and to some degree it can be the devil. I agree on that. It's about how we present that and how we obviously engage with that for the benefit of the people that then are going to be using that space.
Mm-hmm. How do you define the benefit? How do you find out what people actually need in neighborhoods and how you can solve that with street art, for example? Why street art is a solution to that?
Well, in my experience, street art is never the solution, especially when you cope with issues such as the one we experience. But it is a powerful way to convey messages. For example, I was thinking when we have a massive communication and media strategy within our project, and we make sure to use it also to highlight the shortcomings and the difficulties and the real lives of people, so that I could highlight as outcomes the complete revamping of one of those crack houses. After we've taken so many journalists and done so many actions around it and onto it, speaking about it, it really moved forward and was completely restored by the municipality. Still, it's not given to anyone, so it's not a full victory yet. And on the other hand, in the other city, we managed to gather a round table between all the institutions involved in the management of the neighborhood, telling them what we had seen and what we had noticed. So when we feel that the institutions like the social workers' offices and all of them, they really get interested and come and talk to us and ask us, okay, you've been doing this, what's your take on this? Then we understand that we are really managing to bridge a gap between those distrustful, rightfully so, people and institutions. So I think that's one giant win.
Katarina.
Well, I agree with Matteo. I think it very much depends on what is the objective and what you want to achieve. So for us, for example, how do we evaluate the impact or who benefits of the project? It's certainly by the degree of participation. So for our groups, I mean, the artwork, it's not the result. It's about the process. And it's a starting point also for us. Because at the end of the project, we can evaluate if the local community, and especially our target group, that is the youth from disadvantaged backgrounds, if they feel more connected to the local community, to the space, and the process of the street artworks and the artwork itself can help a lot. So for us, it's the degree of participation that we achieve during the process. And giving the space to them. So we don't work for them, we work with them.
Right. That's interesting. Because how do you prevent it from becoming art washing, of course? Isn't it, because I often hear we're going to add paintings to a neighborhood, make it more beautiful. That's it. Is that enough? Or is it just making fun of a bad neighborhood, making it more like an attraction?
We try and be so as consistent as we can. That's how we try and we constantly question ourselves about what the impact is on people and how they respond. But I'm thinking about at least 2 instances of paintings that were made in the neighborhood. And one was like a giant, not literally a giant spaceship, but a very wealthy person in the city wanted to entrust the city with a mural as a gift. And this artist chose the neighborhood we work in because it was all the hype at the moment. So we did this mural then. It's very different. We discussed this yesterday with Katarina. It's very different from what we do. So we are very grateful that the public space is being enriched. But at the same time, we always try and tell the difference between what comes and then just leaves and what stays. And on another instance, we had a very relevant UK artist who was in our city for his own exhibition, and he asked us whether he could come and do a piece in the neighborhood. And communication is always king, so we just told him we would feel you would just come there and do your piece and go away, and this is not consistent with what we do. So let's stay in touch. We still are. And when you have the time to spend time there, to connect to the community, we can do something together. So it's really about always being careful.
Yeah, it's what Giulia is actually saying, because we were discussing it yesterday. It really, as I said, and I will repeat myself again, it's the whole process. So the artist communicates with the youth, with the local community, and they decide together what they want to paint and what they want to create. So this creates the relationships and the trust, and the outcome then feels stronger.
What's the role of governments in this one then?
I have 2 different answers in 2 different projects. In one is none. We are proudly crowdfunded because we want to stay really free from the municipality of our main town, from Palermo, because we are acting a bit like the watchdog of that municipality. So we do cooperate with many institutions, with the courts of justice that send us juvenile offenders and with the schools and all of, but not with the municipality or the state in general, because we feel that their role is really different than cooperating with us. They should do their own job. On the other hand, in a smaller municipality, we have been invited by the municipality to use our method. They just said, we really loved what you did in Palermo, so please come to us and do the same thing. So it really depends on the government, I would say.
Can you explain that method a bit more?
We call it the method because it's really, Katarina was saying that the community is involved in making the job together and deciding the wall and everything. We invite an artist and he or she has complete freedom, and it's all the mediation process while he or she is painting, all the dialogues with the people that really create a huge sense of connection with the neighborhoods. Super horizontal dialogue, so they invite us to their houses, they start making meals for us in this really close and tight and distrustful communities. So we managed to build a relationship which is different from, I think, all education, sociology levels, because it is built on beauty and art, which is something that I would say always speaks to everyone.
Matteo, how do you make sure, do you have procedures internally to avoid art washing at all time, or that the right people benefit from the project?
Absolutely. For me, it's really important to contextualize and differentiate. We do projects that are very commercial, projects that are on nature more on the line of advertising, and those are separate than the projects that we call social and projects that obviously have a different impact. For example, two great programs that I'll share. One is London Mural Festival, similar to Crystal Ship, is a project that is self-funded through our commercial, but that allows us to have the freedom to not depend on a brand, not be under any guidelines for a brand or from any entity commercial, is as a team that get to be able to create, same as Daniel does with festival, same as any other festivals. We get to speak with, for example, in Art for States, which is just bringing art to state councils, which are similar to public housing to a very different degree, different countries. And for example, in that sense, we find neighborhood associations, neighborhood leaders that will introduce, that will create their own workshops, that will bring us and will bring artists. So I think it's very important to differentiate commercial projects with a commercial nature than social projects. In our case, when we do the social projects, they are all either self-funded or they are done in a very separate creative freedom, in a way where whoever is behind the budget is not really getting to say what they have to do or not do. I think that's the key part, to really not go into the art washing of having someone said, as Tim said earlier, oh, we want something more realism or this nature, or at the end of the day, I think that's where it really then it becomes a commission. It doesn't become something social, really.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you make sure that let's call it different? Can Nike, for example, make social impact with graffiti or with street art in general?
It depends. It really depends on what's their meaning behind. I can think of multiple examples. If Nike wants to do something with their brand athlete and their brand and their slogan, no, that's the real thing. Yeah. They are doing something commercial. If they want to help reinstate or bring back football courts, basketball courts, create different areas for younger generations with creative freedom, finding local artists, then yes, I think to some degree they'll profit on a communication level, on a visual level, but at the same time there will be a real impact because you're changing, as I said, football courts, basketball courts, you're bringing different aspects. And I think there are great examples La Liga is the football entity for Spain. They have a very good partnership with EA Sports, with the video games, where all around Spain they pick different communities with different artists who are local and see what are the courts in those aspects that have been badly maintained and how they can improve those. And I think those, to some level, can have, if you think about Nike just putting a big ass logo in a wall, then that is a completely different thing. That's for their own benefit, and that's a commercial that can be painted, can be printed, can be on a digital screen. That's a whole different conversation. But I think it's depending on how they do the project and what's the meaning behind and who's gonna really benefit of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've heard making neighborhoods more beautiful. I've heard connecting people into communities with street art. Are there more techniques with street arts that you see to provide social impacts?
I'd say for me is about one level is political. I think that in itself has impact and social impact. Being able to give that freedom to people to raise questions that otherwise are not being that much. And then the other part as well is in itself, when you are painting in the public space, it creates a debate among your neighborhoods about the local residents, and that in itself I think is impactful. I've seen council estates where people will walk past, not really speak with each other that much or really engage with each other, that when they have a mural, even if it's to hate on that mural, they'll stop in front of it and chit-chat to each other and bring back some level of social dynamic within the same building and the same people that otherwise wouldn't engage that much. Mm-hmm. So
you do have some negative sides to it, of course. Let's say uplifting neighborhoods. You have unwanted attention of people wanting to go into the neighborhood, but you have gentrification as well. Sometimes prices go up. How do you avoid these perversities then?
In the places we work in, gentrification is not a risk. Because, I mean, normalization would be more of the word. But of course, we have sometimes difficult engagement with the neighborhood. It's not always nice and violins and roses. And that is the most interesting part. That is the part where, by trial and error, you start learning very important things about the way people perceive their own space, about they perceive themselves. Because sometimes, one of the most, of the trickiest parts is self-representation. So when you ask people whether they want to be in a mural, because some artists really like to pick their subjects from actual people living in the neighborhood. I saw it all around Oostende, for example. And we had an example where that was not so appreciated. And in the end, it's a bit going back to panel 1, but it has to do with panel 2 because both the people depicted and the people living in the building where these people had been depicted did not really feel comfortable about the mural, and so we engaged a long discussion with the artist that in the end decided to paint something completely different halfway the process because she felt it was really important for the people to change her way at that stage. So this is also one of the risks, let's say.
For us, it's very similar as Giulia because we work in smaller cities and we always choose the neighborhoods before. So gentrification is really not a problem. But from the negative aspects or experiences, a lot of times people are disturbed by the fact that it's the disadvantaged youth that's supposed to paint something. And why the other kids are not involved. Oh, yeah. So, for example, now we are dealing with this wall that we would like to paint, and it's next to the school. And the director of the school, she doesn't want us to paint the wall because she wants the kids from the school to paint it and not the kids from our organization. So this is a lot of times what we encounter, like this reaction from the people. But I have to say that at the end, we always had the positive outcome that they just understood, because a lot of times people were telling me, but how can you work with these kids? They will just run away, they will not pay attention, it will be very complicated. And at the end, what you discover is that they are actually more focused. That when I do projects at secondary schools, like school education, it's completely different. Like the non-formal education, they are really interested because they don't have so many chances to be involved in this kind of projects. So at the end, like even the local communities and the local people, they understand the reason why these kids are involved in this project, and they then look at them differently. So this is for us also something that is very important, like to start a change in the local community.
Mm-hmm. Mateo.
For me, again, I go with context. I think the word gentrification is a very big word that entails a lot of different aspects of it. I think saying that only street art gentrifies, I think is wrong. Saying that no street art doesn't affect at all gentrification, I think is wrong. I think it's an aspect of many, many things. I think it's trying to put a stitch to a gunshot. I think it doesn't really fix a problem. I think gentrification is a lot wider thing that involves how cities are developed, how us as population are developed, how our lifestyle has evolved in the last years, how do we want to live. I think there's many aspects. And again, it's the work of organizations to be able to understand the impact that you're going to have, the impact of making murals, painting walls can have. But I think it's really just slapping on street art gentrifies a neighborhood, I think is something that is, as I said, not really going deep into the issue. I think when you gentrify a neighborhood in some cities is because there is a massive investment in construction behind, because there is infrastructure, there is different components that really go out of it. I think it's very basic or very low to just say, oh no, they painted 20 walls and now this neighborhood is gentrified. Mm-hmm. I think that is just looking at a bigger problem with a very small scope.
And how do you make sure, the three of you, that the scope is big enough, that it's durable what you're doing, that it's not just a one shot and then you're leaving and the neighborhood's left behind?
I think the real key to that is to make sure that while the process is going on, you invite as many stakeholders as possible to be part of the process. So in our case, that would be schools, that would be associations that are already working on the territory, that would be festivals. For example, in Alcamo, the very last project we curated, which is Urban Sunrise, we made sure that all throughout the 15 murals, there were school involved with tours, with smaller projects, with laboratories, with talks, that the whole city was involved, and first and foremost, that all the people who had, for example, a book festival, a film festival, a something festival, really visited the neighborhood and understood that that space was little by little becoming a new space, like a theater or a concert hall that they could use as backdrop to their activities.
Oh yeah, okay, nice.
For us, how do we ensure it's durable? Because we empower the youth workers. We teach them, and then they have the knowledge, and they are the ones that spread the knowledge with the youth. Mm-hmm. And they can also teach or educate other youth workers within their organizations. So that was the whole idea actually of the project, that this idea, it wouldn't be just one thing happening, two artworks in each of the countries happening, but that it would start the real change. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's basically that.
How do you guard it?
I fully agree with Katarina just said. It's about empowering the communities that are there by giving the possibility of having a spokesperson, being able to show them processes of how to engage the rest of the community, how to do workshop, how to bring more questions or problem forward, making sure that when you finish that project, there are people that take that accountability and then move on with that project. You being a silent partner in the background, being able to help, being able to support, but making sure that responsibility and accountability is taken from someone that represents the neighbor and the people that you've really impacted.
Yeah, interesting. How does an artist need to be political or social changing by nature or art? On a more philosophical question.
I would say that is but there are, I mean, all of the artists we've been working with, they really had it. I mean, it's like a stance, it's like a way of being there. It does not depend on how much you speak to the people or how much you, for example, some of them are really shy people, but then the way they mingle, the way they stay, the way they let people interact, even the simple way they accept a coffee or try and interact with people without speaking the language, that makes the community feel a real close connection to these people. And then, of course, we are there to help them with translation and all of that, because very often they are international artists. But yes, I think that, I mean, as far as I've seen, working in the street gives you like a special sensitivity on how to relate to very difficult. It's very often that people say that all along their lifetime experience they've encountered this and that, very hazardous situations, very tough experiences in being in the street, and that really frees you. And I think that is maybe the most important, from all prejudice. So I think that all of the street artists we've been working with had that. They're free minds.
Is that part of street art? Is that part of it, of the definition?
As far as I've seen, I think it should be.
It should.
It should be.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Katarina?
Well, for us, it's very specific, because I don't think a street artist that doesn't have this feeling and doesn't want to help would get involved in our projects, because they know what it takes. They know that they will need to spend a lot of time with the kids, a lot of time with the community. So they need to be motivated and they need to feel the need to also help our purpose. So for us, it's a little bit limited, because a lot of times, like, you contact a street artist, you explain him what is the project about, and a lot of them are actually honest, and they just tell you, look, I just want to do my art. I don't have time to spend with the kids. But I mean, it's also fair enough. Like, it's a different kind of approach, and it's also fine. So every time I contact a street artist, I explain him what's going to take, and then you also see it. Like, we do have a lot of meetings between the street artists and the kids, so we can see if it will work or not. But also now what we do also in the project, we decided to try to focus also on small art interventions that you don't need the artist. So you can be the youth worker, or even the youth, they can be the artists themselves. So in the toolkit, actually, you have a part where you can decide, okay, so do I want to do a project with a street artist, or do I want to do a project alone? So it's for us, it's very specific in this case.
I'm going to change the question a little bit for you, Mateo. Can commercial work be political or changing, or purely commercial work? And is it still art then? Yeah.
I think that there's a two-part question there. Can it still be art? I'd say, in my opinion, yes. There's been known Spanish artists that have collaborated with big brands. Salvador Dalí, being a very good example, still is the logo of one of our biggest candies in Spain. So art and advertising, for me, go hand in hand. And then to the second question, I think all commercial work has an implicit political take, as in the values the brand has behind, the stakeholders that brand has, everything big group can be owned by a different group that has some take on geopolitical takes and issues of the world. So I think all brands and all commercial work has naturally inside some level of political. It's more if that's the image that they try to project or not. But same with, and going back to the question before, same as brands, there's people behind those brands, and same with artists. You were asking about the question of artists. I think is thinking back of artists are human beings, and humans being, there are some that are more political, some that are more ambitious, some that are more commercially driven, some that are more artistically driven, some that want to make an impact or just paint big walls, some others that just want to get done with their day and get back to their family. I think it's the nature of us as human beings, and that applies to artists as well, because they are human beings after all. So I think is that work of understanding the human being behind the artist and why you need to understand what project works for each one of those.
Yeah. Before we go into the break, I would like to thank Mateo, Katarina, and Giulia for the interesting talk. Thank you. Have a seat.